Hashtag Dr. Taiwan Park stood in front of the Galactic Scientific Council, trying to keep his hands from shaking. The huge screen behind him showed pictures of Earth's animals. Right now, it displayed a common brown rat. The alien scientists sitting in the round hall looked at the image with their multiple eyes, and some of them started to laugh. This. Director Cax waved one of his blue tentacles at the screen. This is what you claim is one of Earth's most successful creatures. More laughing filled the room. The director's crystal-like skin sparkled under the bright lights as he turned to face the other council members. Perhaps we made a mistake inviting Earth to join the galactic community. Taiwan took a deep breath. He had spent 5 years studying alien biology, and now these aliens were laughing at Earth's animals. He looked at his research partner, Dr. Hae-Yun Kim, who sat in the front row. She gave him an encouraging nod. Council members, Taiwan said in a clear voice, please let me explain. This rat may look simple to you, but it has shaped human history in ways you cannot imagine. He clicked to the next slide, showing a map of medieval Europe. This small creature has brought down kingdoms. The laughter slowly died down. A tall alien with gray skin and long fingers raised her hand. Dr. Park, our records show that your Earth creatures are primitive compared to the engineered species of the galactic worlds. What could this rat possibly do that our bioengineered creatures cannot? Taiwan smiled. This was his chance. Tell me, honored council members, have any of your worlds experienced a plague that killed half your population? The room went completely quiet. Has any single species on your worlds carried a disease across an entire continent, changing the course of history? Ha-Yun stood up and walked to join him at the front. Our Earth rats, she said, have survived every attempt to remove them. They live in our coldest cities and our hottest deserts. They can swim, climb, and chew through metal. They learn from each other and pass this knowledge to their children. Director Cax's crystal skin changed color slightly, showing his interest. You speak of natural evolution. We left that behind ages ago. Yes, Taiwan said, clicking to show more images. And that is why you don't understand. Earth's creatures evolved through competition, through survival, through countless challenges that made them stronger. He pointed to the rat on the screen. This animal you laugh at has outsmarted every trap we've made. It has survived our poisons. It has followed humanity to every corner of our world. The council members began to whisper among themselves. Hae-Yun stepped forward. We request permission to demonstrate what Earth's rats can do. Let us show you why natural evolution has created something your engineering cannot match. Director Cax's skin now showed swirling patterns of deep blue, a sign of deep thought. The room waited for his response. Finally, he spoke. Very well. You have 1 month to prepare your demonstration. But be warned, if these creatures are as adaptable as you claim, we will need to discuss Earth's classification as a potential threat. Taiwan and Hae-Yun looked at each other. They had gotten the council's attention, but now they had to prove their claims. As they walked out of the hall, Taiwan whispered, I hope we know what we're doing. Hae-Yun smiled. They think they've mastered nature through engineering. It's time to show them why Earth's creatures are different. It's time to show them what real survival means. Behind them, the image of the brown rat still showed on the screen, its small black eyes seeming to watch the departing alien scientists with ancient wisdom. The archive station orbiting Jupiter was the biggest library humans had ever built. Its long halls held thousands of years of Earth's history. Dr. Taiwan Park and Dr. Hae-Yun Kim walked through these halls with Do-Hyun Lee, the station's lead archivist. You want to find everything about rats? Do-Hyun asked, his fingers moving quickly over his tablet. That's a lot of history to go through. We need proof, Hae-Yun said. The council thinks Earth's creatures are weak because they're not engineered. We have to show them why they're wrong. The three of them entered a large room filled with floating screens. Do-Hyun touched his tablet, and the screens came alive with images and text. Let's start with the Black Death, he said. It killed almost half of Europe's people in just 4 years. Taiwan watched as pictures of medieval times appeared around them. The aliens have never seen anything like this, he said. Their worlds are too controlled, too clean. They don't understand what it means to evolve alongside diseases. Yun pointed to one of the screens. Look at these numbers. The plague spread across Europe at about 4 kilometers per day. The rats carried the infected fleas everywhere, on ships, in wagons, through cities and villages. But that's not all, Du Hyun said, bringing up more data. Rats have shaped human history in other ways too. They've followed us everywhere. They've learned to avoid our traps. They've even learned to swim through pipes and climb up walls. The screen showed more images, rats in cities, in farms, on ships. Here's something interesting, Du Hyun said. Modern rats in cities have different behaviors than rats in the countryside. They've learned to avoid new traps. They teach these skills to their children. Taiwan's eyes widened. That's it. The aliens think evolution is just about physical changes. But Earth's creatures evolve in their behavior too. They learn and adapt in ways the aliens' engineered species cannot. Hyun started marking certain files on her tablet. We need to show them the whole picture. Not just the plague, but everything. How rats survived our poisons. How they figured out our traps. How they learned to live in any environment we built. There's more, Du Hyun said quietly. He brought up another set of files. Look at this. Every time humans have tried to completely remove rats from a place, they've failed. The rats always come back. They always find a way to survive. The 3 humans stood in silence, surrounded by the floating images of history. Finally, Hyun spoke. The council needs to understand this. Earth's creatures aren't just surviving by chance. They're surviving because they've faced challenges for millions of years. Each challenge made them stronger, smarter. But be careful, Du Hyun warned. If you prove your point too well, the council might decide Earth is dangerous. They might want to stop us from joining the galactic community. Taiwan looked at the images floating around them. They need to understand. The universe isn't as clean and controlled as they think. Sooner or later, they'll face something they didn't engineer, something that evolved naturally. When that happens, they'll need to know what we know. As they left the archive room, the screens continued to show their images, centuries of history, all shaped by a creature the aliens had laughed at. Soon, they would learn why no one on Earth was laughing about rats. The meeting room on the space station was quiet except for the soft hum of air filters. Ji-ho Yang, a young researcher fresh from Earth's Space Academy, stood in front of the gathered scientists. His hands were steady as he pointed to the hologram floating above the table. We need to show them, not just tell them, Ji-ho said. I propose we set up 3 test environments. We put rats in each one and show how quickly they adapt. Dr. Sun Li Cho, who had spent 20 years studying animal behavior, shook her head. It's too risky. These aren't ordinary lab rats. We're talking about creatures that have survived everything Earth has thrown at them. Taiwan looked at the designs floating above the table. The first environment would copy the cold of an ice planet. The second would be like a desert world. The third would match the crystal forests of the alien council members' homeworld. Ji-ho is right, Hyun said, standing up. The council won't believe our archives alone. They need to see with their own eyes how Earth's rats adapt and survive. Sun Li pointed to the third environment design. Those crystal trees are alive. The council says they're sacred. What happens if the rats damage them? That's exactly why we need to show them, Ji-ho said. His eyes were bright with excitement. Their engineered creatures never damaged the crystal trees because they were made not to. But real evolution doesn't work that way. Natural creatures adapt to survive, no matter what stands in their way. The room burst into argument. Some scientists supported the idea. Others thought it was too dangerous. Taiwan watched them all, thinking hard. Finally, he raised his hand. and the room grew quiet. "We'll need special permission from the council," he said, "and we'll need the strongest containment systems ever built. But Jai-Ho is right. They need to see this." Hei-Yun's tablet beeped. She looked at it, and her face grew serious. "The council is already worried. They've just changed Earth's danger rating from green to yellow. They think we might be hiding something." "We're not hiding anything," Jai-Ho said. "We're trying to help them understand. Their engineered worlds are like carefully tended gardens, but the real universe isn't like that. Sooner or later, they'll meet other naturally evolved species. They need to know what that means." Sun-Mai stood up and walked to the hologram. She touched it, and the design changed to show stronger containment walls. "If we do this, we do it my way. Triple containment. Guards at every door. And if even one rat shows signs of escaping, we shut everything down." Taiwan nodded. "Agreed. Jai-Ho, you'll lead the setup team. Sun-Mai, you'll handle safety. Hei-Yun and I will talk to the council." As they left the meeting room, Jai-Ho stayed behind, looking at the hologram. The three environments floated in the air, waiting to be built. Soon they would show the galaxy why Earth's creatures were different, why they were stronger, why they should never be underestimated. Outside the window, Jupiter's great red spot swirled in the distance, like a giant eye watching over their experiment. Dong Hyuk Choi checked the thick glass walls of the containment units for the 10th time that morning. As the station's top biosecurity expert, he knew he couldn't be too careful. Each of the 3 experimental chambers was surrounded by 3 layers of unbreakable glass, with airlocks between each layer. "All security systems are working perfectly," he told Taiwan and Hei-Yun. "The rats cannot escape these chambers." The first chamber looked like a frozen wasteland. Ice covered the ground, and the temperature was well below freezing. The second chamber was hot and dry, filled with red sand and sharp rocks. The third chamber held the delicate crystal trees, their branches glowing with soft blue light. "The council members are arriving," Jai-Ho announced, looking at his tablet. His young face showed both excitement and worry. Behind him, Sun-Mai was doing her own security checks. The alien scientists entered the observation room. Director Cax's crystal skin sparkled as he moved to the front. "You may begin," he said coldly. Dong Hyuk pressed his hand against the security panel. 3 small doors opened in the chambers. From special carriers, 20 rats were released into each environment. The rats were normal brown rats from Earth, chosen for their ordinary nature. At first, nothing special happened. The rats in the ice chamber huddled together, shivering. The ones in the desert chamber searched for shade. The rats near the crystal trees sniffed the strange glowing plants carefully. "See," Director Cax said, "they can barely survive. Our engineered creatures would already be." He stopped talking. In the ice chamber, the rats had started gathering small ice crystals. They were piling them into a domed shape, creating a shelter. In the desert chamber, the rats had found a way to dig deep burrows under the rocks, where the temperature was cooler. But it was the crystal forest chamber that made everyone gasp. The rats had discovered that the fallen crystal leaves could be pushed together to make reflecting surfaces. They were using these surfaces to direct the light and warm certain areas. "Impossible," one of the alien scientists said. "They're using tools, basic tools, but still. They're learning," Hei-Yun explained. "This is what natural evolution gives you, creatures that can think, adapt, and solve problems in new ways." Dong Hyuk noticed something else. "Look at their fur," he said. "The rats in the ice chamber, their fur is already getting thicker. And the desert rats are losing fur to stay cool." "That's not possible," Director Cax said. "Physical changes like that take generations." "On your worlds, matey," Taiwan said. "But Earth's creatures have genes that can activate quickly when needed. Our animals don't wait for perfect solutions. They find ways to survive right now." As they watched, the rats continued to adapt. They were marking safe paths for each other, sharing food, and teaching younger rats what they had learned. In just one day, they had started to master their new environments. The alien scientists watched in silence. Their carefully engineered world suddenly seemed very fragile compared to the raw survival skills they were witnessing. Security officer Min Seok Kang had watched rats before, but never like this. After 3 days, the rats in all 3 chambers were doing things that surprised even the Earth scientists. He stood at his monitoring station, carefully writing down everything he saw. "Dr. Park, you need to see this," Min Seok called out. Taiwan hurried over to his screen. The camera showed the rats in the ice chamber doing something remarkable. They weren't just building ice shelters anymore. They were making tunnels that connected different shelters, creating a whole underground city. Yun joined them at the screen. "Look at how they mark the tunnel entrances," she said. "They're using different scratches to show which tunnels lead where. They're making maps." In the desert chamber, the rats had found an even more surprising solution to the heat. They were working in shifts. Some rats would sleep during the hot day, while others kept watch. At night, when it was cooler, they would switch places. They had created their own work schedule. But it was the crystal forest chamber that showed the most shocking changes. Min Seok zoomed in his camera to show everyone. The rats there had discovered that rubbing their fur against the crystal trees created small sparks of light. They were using these sparks to signal to each other across the chamber. "This is beyond normal adaptation," Sun Mai said, her voice filled with wonder. "They're not just surviving. They're creating new ways to live in these environments." Director Caxeth had been watching silently for hours. Now he turned to face the Earth scientists. "How is this possible? These are simple Earth rodents. They should not be able to do these things." Jaiho stepped forward with his tablet. "But that's what makes Earth's creatures special," he explained. "They don't just adapt their bodies. They adapt their behavior. They learn. They teach. They work together." As if to prove his point, the rats in the ice chamber began a new behavior. When food was placed in their chamber, they didn't all rush to get it. Instead, they sent one rat to check if the food was safe. After that rat ate some and showed it was okay, the others would come. "They're testing for poison," Min Seok realized. They remember their ancestors learned to check for poison, and somehow they still know to do it. The alien scientists whispered among themselves. Their own engineered creatures were perfect for their specific tasks, but they couldn't adapt like this. They couldn't learn new things or solve new problems. Suddenly, one of Min Seok's alarms started beeping. He checked his screen and his face turned serious. "The rats in the crystal forest," he said. "They're not just making light signals anymore. They've figured out how to use the crystals to make the light stronger. They're learning to control the environment itself." Taiwan and Yun looked at each other with worry. They had wanted to prove Earth's creatures were special, but now they wondered if they had proved too much. The council members watched the screens with new fear in their eyes. They weren't laughing anymore. Dr. Yoon Hee Huang walked into the observation room carrying a large data tablet. As Earth's top expert on disease spread, she had studied how rats had changed human history. Now, looking at the 3 experiment chambers, she knew she had to share what she had learned. "Director Cax," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Before you make any decisions about Earth's creatures, there's something you need to understand about our history with rats." The alien leader turned all 4 of his eyes toward her. The crystal patterns in his skin showed swirling colors of worry. "Speak, Dr. Wang. What more can these creatures show us?" Yoon Hee connected her tablet to the main screen. A map of ancient Earth appeared, showing trade routes across Asia and Europe. The Black Death wasn't just a disease, she explained. It was a lesson in how life adapts and survives. She touched the screen, and red dots began to appear along the trade routes. The rats carried fleas. The fleas carried the disease. But here's what's important. When humans tried to kill the rats with poison, something unexpected happened. The rats that survived became stronger, Heyun added, understanding where Yoonhee was going with this. Exactly, Yoonhee said. Each time we tried to kill them, the survivors passed their resistance to their children. The rats learned to avoid new poisons before even tasting them. They learned to be careful with new foods. They taught their young which places were dangerous. Taiwan looked at the experiment chambers. In the crystal forest, the rats had created an entire system of light signals. In the ice chamber, they had built a small city. In the desert, they worked together like trained soldiers. But it's not just about survival, Yoonhee continued. She showed new images on the screen. Modern cities, sewers, farms. Rats learned to live in every place humans built. They found food in our cities. They made homes in our walls. They even learned to swim through our pipes and climb up smooth surfaces. Director Kak's skin turned a pale blue color. You're saying they adapt to everything. Not just adapt, Yoonhee corrected. They learn. They remember. They pass on their knowledge. On your worlds, you create creatures to fit your needs. But Earth's creatures, she paused, looking at the chambers. They create themselves to survive anything. Suddenly, Min Seok's security panel started flashing red. In the crystal forest chamber, the rats had found a way to make the crystal trees grow faster by redirecting their light. They were changing the environment itself. You see, Yoonhee said quietly, this is why Earth's creatures are different. We didn't make them. We survived with them, against them, because of them. Every challenge made both us and them stronger. The alien scientists watched in silence as the rats continued their work. Their carefully engineered worlds had never faced anything like this, creatures that could think, learn, and change everything around them. The emergency meeting room of the Galactic Council felt too small for such a big decision. Director Kaxith sat at the head of the table, his crystal skin now showing deep purple patterns of concern. Around him, other alien leaders watched the video feeds from the experiment chambers with growing worry. Taiwan and Heyun stood before them, ready to explain what all this meant. Behind them, young researcher Hyun-Woo Ba worked quickly on his data tablet, preparing to show his findings about human immunity. Council members, Taiwan began. You've seen how Earth's rats adapt. But there's something even more important you need to understand. These creatures made humans stronger too. Hyun-Woo stepped forward and shared his screen on the big display. It showed two DNA patterns side by side. This is human DNA from before we faced many diseases, he explained. And this is human DNA now. See the differences. Each challenge we faced changed us. The rats carried diseases, Heyun added. Yes, many humans died. But those who lived became stronger. Their children were stronger still. Earth's creatures and humans kept pushing each other to adapt, to survive, to become better. One of the alien scientists, his skin glowing the soft green, spoke up. But this is dangerous. These creatures change too quickly. They learn too much. Look at what they've done to our sacred crystal trees. The screen showed the crystal forest chamber. The rats there had learned to touch the trees in special ways, making them grow in new patterns. They had created paths through the crystal branches and were using the light in ways no one had seen before. Exactly, Taiwan said. They adapt to everything. They learn from everything. And so do we. That's what makes Earth special. We don't control our evolution like you do. We let it happen naturally, through challenge and response. Hyun-Woo brought up new data. Look at human immune systems, he said. They can fight diseases no one has seen before. Why? Because we evolved alongside creatures that kept bringing us new challenges. The rats weren't just our enemies. They helped make us stronger. Director Kax's skin rippled with colors as he thought. You're saying that struggle, that constant challenge, makes both sides stronger. Yes, Heyun answered. On your worlds, everything is carefully controlled. But the real universe isn't like that. Sooner or later, you'll meet species that evolved naturally. Species that learn to survive like we did. The council room grew quiet. On the screens, the rats continued their work. In the ice chamber, they had built a complex city. In the desert, they had created a society that worked in shifts. And in the crystal forest, they were changing the very environment itself. Perhaps, Director Cax said slowly, we have been too quick to dismiss Earth's way of doing things. Perhaps there are things we need to learn from your world. Taiwan and Heiyun looked at each other with hope. Finally, the aliens were beginning to understand. Earth wasn't primitive. It was a proving ground where every creature had to earn its right to survive. 1 month after the experiment began, the Galactic Council gathered for their final decision about Earth. The experiment chambers had been carefully cleaned and sealed. The rats had been safely returned to Earth. Now it was time to understand what it all meant. Director Cax stood before the assembled scientists, his crystal skin showing calm blue patterns. When Earth first joined our community, he began, we thought they were primitive. We laughed at their creatures. We were wrong. The great screen behind him showed recordings from the experiment. The ice chamber rats had built an entire city under the ice, with tunnels marked by different symbols. The desert rats had created a society that worked in shifts, sharing the burden of survival. And the crystal forest rats had learned to work with the sacred trees in ways no one had imagined possible. Earth's creatures, Cax continued, show us something we have forgotten. Evolution isn't just about making perfect creatures. It's about making creatures that can face the unknown and survive. Taiwan and Heiyun sat in the front row, watching as their month of work came to its end. Next to them, Sunmei and Jiho waited nervously for the council's final words. We have changed Earth's classification, Cax announced, not because they are dangerous, but because they are valuable. Their world has lessons we need to learn. Heiyun leaned over to Taiwan. They finally understand, she whispered. It was never about being perfect. It was about being able to change. The director touched a crystal on his podium, and new images appeared. They showed the rats teaching their young ones how to survive in each environment, how to test food for safety, how to work together, how to adapt. From this day forward, Cax said, Earth will help us prepare for the unknown. Their creatures, which we once laughed at, will teach us what our engineered species cannot. How to face challenges we didn't plan for. How to survive things we never expected. In the back of the room, Yoon-hee nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy needed to understand this lesson. The universe wasn't a carefully controlled laboratory. It was wild, unexpected, and full of surprises. And so, Cax concluded, we welcome Earth not as a primitive world, but as a teacher. Their rats, which once carried plague across continents, have shown us the true meaning of survival. Their struggle made them stronger. Their challenges made them smarter. Their victories made them wise. As the council members stood to applaud, Taiwan looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond their known space, other naturally evolved creatures were waiting. When they met them, the galaxy would be ready, thanks to the lessons taught by Earth's humble rats. They're not laughing anymore, Heiyun said with a smile. No, Taiwan agreed. Now they're learning. Just like we did. Just like the rats did. Just like every creature on Earth had to learn. The hard way. The real way. The way that makes you strong enough to face whatever comes next.